and perseverance and resilience. I think if we could bottle that up, we would all take it home. Well, now we're very excited to have Susan back up here again. I know she was like, I'm doing this back to back. I said, yes, you are. Uh, but really, we have an honor to introduce our keynote conversation with the mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniella Levine Cava, and of course, our own president and CEO, Susan Siegel. The conversation will highlight Mayor Daniella's career path in the public service as a lawyer, a social worker, an activist, and the first female mayor of Miami-Dade. Welcome, Daniella.
Is someone going to reset that little thing up there, please? So, Daniella, I want to welcome you. Maria did a lot of the introduction, but I do want to make a couple of points in your introduction. She was elected the first ever woman mayor in November of 2020 after 40 years of advocacy for South Florida families. And I think that's really important. As mayor, she oversees over 30,000 employees and serves nearly 3 million residents. So those of you that think you manage something, nothing like this. Yeah. And she is definitely focused on building a more resilient and prosperous Miami-Dade. So her initiatives include combating gun violence, something that coming originally from New York, I believe in deeply, building a future-ready economy, tackling the housing crisis, and of course, preserving the environment. Her broad background as a lawyer, a social worker, and an activist really gives her a unique background to be mayor. And she has, with her husband and Dr. Robert Cava, she's raised 2 children, which is also, I think, so important because you've not only had incredible professional achievement, as we talked about, but you've also had personal achievement and satisfaction. Now, we know that Miami, Mayor, is your home, but you're originally from New York and you moved to Miami to join your husband. Can you tell us about your journey a little bit, please?
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. This august organization that draws people who are so global and expansive in your thinking and part of this great group. It's really an honor to be with you. I'm so proud to serve as our first woman mayor in Miami-Dade County. And we do have cities, by the way. We have 34 cities that are part of the county. About half of the county is not part of a city. So it's a complicated formula, a management challenge, I'll put it like that. But I do, just before I get started.
And diverse, right?
Oh, yes, the most diverse, the most dynamically diverse, the most inclusive, the most welcoming. Really love it. But I do also want to acknowledge my team that's with me, Jessie de Quesada-Covey, who's our Chief of Innovation and Economic Development, her Deputy James Comstam, and Maria Dreyfus-Olvert, who is our lead on global affairs. So so happy that they're with me here today. So my journey. So I was born in New York City, but then we moved to the suburbs, and my dad was in international business. He was traveling all over the world, and occasionally he had the opportunity to stay in one place for a time. So he took us with him to Brazil and then Chile. Yes, also Vancouver, Canada. So we lived as a family in 3 different places. And then I guess I had a travel bug. That was not the norm for my peers. I'm 68, so, I've been around for a little bit. And I did not know anyone else who had traveled globally, much less, lived overseas. So that was a very broadening experience. It was Rio, Santiago, Vancouver, and then I, on my own, lived in England, Puerto Rico. Where else did I live? I traveled a lot. So I would say that this was extremely formative for me, right? If you have that experience, and so many in this country at that time were so US focused and really didn't understand that the United States was not the center of the universe. So for me, it was very broadening and humbling to experience life in other countries.
I understand that because I traveled from the time I was a small child too, with my grandparents and my parents. And so it really shaped how I thought about the world and my career. So upon your arrival in Miami, continuing on your journey, you worked as an attorney, a social worker in different programs and local organizations to advocate for residents. What made you decide to run for mayor?
Well, I left out, just to be complete, Chicago and Atlanta, other places that I lived. And I actually met my future husband in Atlanta. So I never planned to stay in Miami, just to be clear. It was going to be temporary. We were going to sail around the world. That was
On your own sailboat?
yes, we were going to sail around the world. I not a clue had I, but this was his ambition, and I was willing to go along. His family was here. He's a physician. His father was a physician. He planned to give his dad a sabbatical year, and then after that, we would sail around the world. So I finished my last year of law school here at University of Miami, although I had graduated from Columbia, law and social work degrees. So I was about social change. I was really about children and families. My educational focus had been building better lives for children, making sure that every child had the right to be loved and stable and have a productive future life, and studied psychology, but with an emphasis on child studies in college, and then my master's in social work, and so on. So I never planned to go into politics. I call myself a late bloomer. So I was here in Miami-Dade. I started quite a few nonprofit organizations. One of them, Voices for Children, that focuses on children in foster care. And I ran the foster care system for a time here, and had other roles. And I founded an organization called then the Human Services Coalition, which became then Catalyst Miami, which is a major anti-poverty and civic engagement organization. So that was my special sauce, my emanation of my soul. And I was teaching people how to advocate for improvements in government to meet the needs of children and families and communities, especially those struggling economically. And finally, someone pushed me over the edge and said, it's time, you really need to do it. And my daughter pushed me into thinking like maybe there was a life after my nonprofit, which I was concerned with how it would continue without me, really. But I helped to stabilize it. And then I took the plunge and I ran for county commission. And that was in a portion of the county in the southern part of our county. And I was county commissioner for 6 years. And it was really a wonderful experience because I was able to put into practice a lot of the things that I had been advocating for on the outside, and also work with my extensive network of community organizations, faith groups, civic groups to get things done, because you can't do it on your own. You have to have public support, public advocacy. And then after 10 years, the then mayor had termed out, and it was really time to try to have a bigger impact. So I ran and became mayor.
Wow. So your mother, you're a leader, and how do you balance it all?
Well, someone asked me that question recently for Women's History Month. We had a women's panel. I said, I don't think I'm the best one to ask about balance, probably. But I don't think I would have done this at a younger age. I wasn't prepared, ready, didn't think it was my best role. Also, when I had my children, I was certainly working very hard. I mean, I always work hard, but my children are grown. My husband's quite self-sufficient. Uh, so, so I work all the time. And my downtime, if you will, is nature, mostly being in nature. I did not have grandchildren when I first ran. That might have changed my trajectory. Now I have two in Washington, D.C. and one 3 months old here. So that is a joy and certainly a tonic for the other ills. For example, people asked me the other day how I'm doing. I have a rule, only 3 crises a day. After that, it has to roll over to the next day, But speaking of rolling over, that was my news. My 3.5-month-old granddaughter had just rolled over.
That's fantastic.
Yes,
No,
truly.
I mean, I
truly
think
it
being a
is.
grandmother is
The
really,
best.
my daughter is pregnant, so I'm gonna be a
Oh,
grandmother hopefully in the fall.
oh,
So,
wonderful.
I can identify with that because I think that will have a huge impact in my life and how I want to
Absolutely.
spend my time.
Yes.
So you oversee this huge metropolitan government of nearly 30,000 employees, and you serve 3 million residents and manage an annual budget of 12 billion. What does it mean to you? And are you having fun doing this?
Well, I tell people it's joyful about 90% of the time, but that could vary depending on the day of the week. There definitely are many, many challenges. We have huge economic growth here in Miami-Dade County. We're the most recovered economy in the country. Certainly, people discovered our paradise during the pandemic, and then they moved themselves, their families, their businesses. We have really a net in migration and also departure. It's so not really growing population-wise overall, but the people who are coming are business innovators or catalytic people. They're coming from New York and Chicago and California, Texas, So it has changed. It is changing the trajectory. With all of that growth has also come some really big pain points like affordability. So it's really short-sighted to not aggressively deal with housing. Certainly traffic. I don't know how much time you all are here, but yeah, traffic is definitely a challenge, and the only solution is transit. So we have to really double down on those solutions. The environment is our existential threat. Certainly have the most assets at risk from sea level rise of any place in the world. And unfortunately, we're still building, not always smart. So we have to really focus on infrastructure. So we're very, very focused on that, reducing our carbon as well. We're shore power at the port. I just came from the port, so I'm reminded of that. Just many, many things that we're doing to be responsible in the world, but also to protect and prolong our quality of life here. So I don't remember the question, but those are the things that those are the things that keep me up at night. Oh, you asked if I'm having fun. I am a great problem solver. I love to solve problems. And I do it, of course, not on my own. I do it with a great, great team. And I do it in collaboration with all of my community and business partners. I'm considered very business friendly. I recognize that we can't do any of this if we don't have the support of the business community. But I'm also a social worker at heart. And of course, I care very, very much about the well-being of the people in our community. And I'll just finish with where I started. If we don't make sure that the people who are here supporting our economy can afford to be here, then we're really shooting ourselves in the foot.
So I guess, how do you balance exactly that with the infrastructure and housing needs and the environment? Because those all are separate tracks, but they need to come together on one track, right?
Yeah, and we need the public to understand that. So we did launch an initiative around a financing program bond that would include housing affordability and resilience programs. Um, we just announced yesterday that we're going to take a couple more years to build momentum because there's a big demand also to really invest in transit. Transit, again, kind of an Achilles heel. And, but the business community said, look, we need to solve this. That's a very heavy lift. You know, we poll these things. So we know that people understand that we have to protect our bay. It's an economic engine, the blue heart of our economy. We know people understand the housing dilemma. We know people want more parks. People don't want to pay more for transit because they have a half penny sales tax that was approved that overpromised and underdelivered. And that was before my time, but it was really, it is corrosive to make promises that you know you cannot deliver on. And the program was designed around a full penny, and then it was decided only to go to the public and ask for a half penny because of public sentiment, but they never reduced the promises. So we're in that moment in which we have to restore trust in our government's ability to spend money on transit before that will be approved by voters. So we're taking a little more time to do that. So you asked how to balance it. I think really we need the public to understand. So we're taking our time. We have grants with community groups to educate. We're going to be working hard to help people understand that, you know, it's not just to survive, but it's to thrive, and we have to make investments.
So Miami has become this incredible international hub. I mean, a lot of people call it the capital of Latin America. And you're also trying to become, and you are, a center of innovation and technology. Can you tell us a little bit of how you balance that and how you see that?
So we are still a county of small businesses. So even with the very exciting relocation and growth, and we have more, we don't only have companies relocating, but they're scaling. And they're scaling because we have more capital than we used to have. So we really have a perfect environment. We need our academic institutions to also meet the challenge, because to provide the workforce for the new economy requires sustained educational pipelines. So we have to work collaboratively and are doing so. So the small business ecosystem is a very innovative one. We are naturally innovative. It's in our DNA. So that, if you know the Kaufman Foundation that measured those things, like I'm talking, go back decades, out of necessity, because when we have so many people locating from Caribbean and Central and Latin America, many of them really don't fit into the traditional economy. So they have to be inventive, and we have a great entrepreneurial ecosystem and like DNA. So that on top of the newcomers and the new capital is really meteoric. We just have to be able to balance it with the equity, the opportunity, and make sure that we're building in a resilient way. So one of the things that we've done, of course, I created an Office of Innovation and Economic Development led by Chessie and her team. We also have an Office of Resilience, which was in the county, which as a commissioner, I really pushed to make happen. But as mayor, I elevated it to the mayor's office. So I have on my right, I've got my innovation economic team. On my left, I've got my resilience team, and then how they work together so that our economic development addresses those concerns. And my Office of Equity and Engagement. So all those are kind of my little satellites revolving around my mayor's office, and working collaboratively. We created something called purpose-driven procurement to make sure that when the county procures, that those companies are resilient and they are equitable. And even though the state has attempted to and has been successful in preempting our ability to, for example, require a living wage higher than a minimum wage, we still have tools in our toolbox to make sure that we can support our workforce and we can develop in a way that will be sustainable.
And in a state that might feel less about gender diversity, et cetera, than some other states, how are you dealing with that here in
Yeah,
Miami-Dade?
well, diversity of all kinds. And so again, I have an Office of Equity and Engagement, the first in the county. And that's also baked into our procurement and our hiring. By the way, ladies, recently I sat down to do the actual calculations because I knew that I had a lot more women than were before in leadership roles. So when I take my direct reports and then their direct reports, so my chiefs, my directors, and my deputy directors were 2/3 women.
Congratulations. That's terrific.
Yeah, really. And I can't say I said about doing that intentionally, that these were just the right people for the jobs, right?
Absolutely.
So, but we do need to be very conscious of it. And I created, the first thing I did when I was elected to office as county commissioner, I was elected in August, it's a primary, but I don't take office till November. And I had 3 months to prepare. And I was approached by, I think, San Francisco, where they had passed the Convention to End Discrimination in All Forms Against Women, a UN charter that the United States had rejected. So along with the Vatican, and I don't remember which Eastern European country that didn't sign on, everyone else signed on. And they were doing a movement to get, I think some cities had adopted it, but no county. So I set to work, and very early in my tenure, we adopted that charter, and we have an annual report on the status of women. Sadly, while we're making progress in some regards, especially the pandemic, often called a she-cession, not a recession, because women as the primary caretakers lost ground in salaries and in business involvement. So we have to rebuild.
And what are you most proud of?
Well, I'm really, really proud of my team. I have an amazing, amazing team of leaders, many of whom are not coming out of traditional government backgrounds, but also finding innovators within county government to elevate. And really, for me, it's culture change. It's creating a new approach that's very customer focused. Look, I got into this because I care about our democracy so passionately and believe that the way government delivers services translates into people's trust in their government. So I had been working on this issue outside of government, building trust. So here I have an opportunity to deserve the trust, if you will. And so created an Office of Resident Services. We monitor customer inquiries and complaints, train everybody in, treating, like, if there's a pothole to be filled or a water bill to pay or a dirty bathroom at the airport or whatever it may be, it's all customer service, and it all translates to how people feel about their governments. So that has been my focus.
Well, I mean, I think it's amazing because you think of your constituents as customers, and that is very different than a lot of mayors. And it's so important because you're the first point of contact that many citizens have with government. And so your view of them as customers is just critical.
Well, they pay the bill, right? There you go.
So the time is up, but I have one last question. We have a lot of young professionals, not just in the room, but virtually. If you had to give them one piece of advice, what would it be, Mayor? Please.
Well, I have a personal mission statement that I developed a few years ago, which is talent scouting for world benefit. So actually, this was somewhat spurred by a conversation I had with some business students at the University of Miami, where somebody said to me, "Oh, I'm going to retire and then I'll get involved in the community." I said, "You got to be kidding." We need you now. We need you to take your passion, whatever it is, and lend your expertise, your credibility, your your passion to a cause that is meaningful to you. Just get started. Just do something to make a difference.
Well, you clearly make a difference. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we hope to see you again. And good luck.
And I am up for reelection, so, okay.
Okay, everyone, thank you. That was amazing. And now we have a coffee break, so enjoy.